Hey 252 Cubs, it's Chris here. This week we set you a task to get some sticks. So I've got 6 sticks here about the same length. Oh, which ones have I got here? There you go. 5 and 6. And we're going to show you how to make a mini raft out of them. Now we will do this live on the night as well, but I thought I'd do a video in advance so that you can at least get yourself started. So first of all, hopefully you've all been practicing your clove hitch. So we've got our 2 lengths of rope, which I've got down here. The clove hitch is one of the really useful knots. So if I do quite a lot of stuff in the garden, and me and my mates go canoeing from time to time, and yeah, whenever you're lashing stuff together, clove hitch is one of the most useful knots you can have. So there was 2 ways to do it in the video. The way I find the easiest was when you do a double loop and then you hook it over the top of the stick. So I'm going to do this reasonably quickly because we can always dwell on it on the evening, or you can refer back to that video that we sent around last week. Essentially you make 2 loops, and I always think of it of making a loop by going over, and then you hold it in your hand, between your thumb and your forefinger, and then you do the same loop again. Oops, that one didn't go the right way. Then you've got 2 loops, both going in the same direction. And the key with most knots is that you have to create a bite. So one of the bits of rope has to bite against the other. Now in this case, the second loop actually goes underneath the first one. Okay, and then you can see that the actual rope bites against the other one. If we put it on top, it just turns into a concertina and it doesn't bite. Okay, so this time we go underneath, and then those guys make a bite together. That, very simply, now I'm going to use my teeth here because it's a bit easier. So the little loop that's hanging out, I'm going to hold onto it with my cuff, and we'll pull it tight, and that's a clove hitch. So once you've done your clove hitch, we then do, this is a lashing. The lashing I'm going to show you will work on both small twigs like this, but if we ever set you a job in the future to make a massive raft, you can use the same trick. It's called a figure of 8 lashing, and you can use the same figure of 8 lashing to do all sorts of things. So you can make rafts, you can make tripods to put over a fire, you can make, if you're making a tent, or if you're making any kind of structure that requires either 2 or 3 bits of wood to be tied together, the figure of 8 lashing is the one that you generally use for that. And it's really simple. It's exactly what we've just said. So first of all, I'm going to hold as many of these in my hand as I can. Luckily I've got bigger hands than you guys. You might find this a bit tricky, and so you may need an adult to help you. So you want to try and hold all 6 if you can. And if you can't, you can always lay them on the table whilst you weave the first ones together. Oh, I've got a bit of a rogue one there. So most of my sticks are straight except for this little one here. So I'm going to have a go with it anyway. We'll see how we get on. Okay, once they're together, I'm just going to swap hands. You then simply do a figure of 8. So you go in and out, so you go up and over. I don't know if you can see that on the video. I'm going to stand up. So over, under, over, under. Right, once you've done the first row, you want to sort of pull it a little bit tight, and then you go round the end one, and you go back again. So you go under, over, and this time it should be opposite. So you end up with a loop on each branch then. And this is where it starts to bite it all together and turn it into a nice tight lashing. And now I'm doing it, it's actually quite fiddly. So you might want to practice this. So once you've done it, I'm going to lay them down now. I've gone in both directions now, and I've tried to, I'm just going to show you. So it's all a bit mucky at the moment. So the next thing to do is just to pull it a little bit tight. So we pull the string and we give it a wiggle, and we try and get all these knots. You want them about 2 centimeters down. And then once you've done that, you should have your first row done. I'm just going to move my knot down as well because that was a bit high. Okay, cool. And once you've done that, we go back again. So we go round the end one, and we go under, over, under, over, under. Okay, when you get to the end, and you neaten it up and you put it tight. Okay, there we go. And put it nice and tight. And then guess what? We repeat, we go back again. So we go under, over, under. You get the idea. I don't need to tell you what I'm doing. Okay, now in lashings and in knots, and in fact, I use this in most of my life, where the number 3 is the magic number. So once you've done 3 passes in the same direction, you generally then do the next part of the knot. Now today, because we're going under, over, you'll see that you've only actually, even though we've gone around 2 or 3 times, you can see we've still only got 2 bits of rope showing. So we've actually got about 4 more to do. So whilst I'm doing those, I'm just going to pause the video and I'll give you, in a second, we'll see the end result. Okay, so I actually made a miscalculation before. So I have done 3 on this side. I realised if I did 3 on both sides, I would end up with not very much string left. So I'm sort of 1 short on one side, but that's okay. So what we're looking for in the end is your raft to be nice and straight along the edge, and you squeeze these all together so that they're nice and neat and tidy. It's okay if it's not too tight, because we're going to do a thing called frapping, which is how you finish off a lashing. So you always do try and keep your lashing as tight as possible, but at the end, to finish off a lashing, you frap it by tightening the knots together and pulling it all together. So that's what we're going to do now. And in addition, we're going to create a ridge across the raft using this stick as well. So it's going to be quite difficult to do because I'm now working on the table. But essentially, so I'm going to place the stick across the top. Okay, and I'll try and hold it up as we go. And what we're going to do is use the long length that we've still got left over. And incidentally, whilst this is the start of our knot, the start of our lashing, I usually keep this one out. There is a neat way to do it if you're trying to be some sort of lashing pro, but I always keep this one out because it's quite handy to tie off your ropes using a length at the end. So I always keep this little bit just to the side so that I can use it at the end. Now this bit, what we're doing essentially is creating a nice pretty X pattern across this stick, and as we do it, it will hold the stick in place whilst also tightening up the whole lashing. So with your long piece, you go diagonally across. Okay, so you're now going to have to squeeze the rope down in between. If I hold it a bit closer, so I'm going to squeeze the rope down in between the 2. You go round the back, and on the same log, we're going to go back across. Okay, so we're then going to go, so pull it really tight as you go. So now you create a lovely cross on your rope, and then we go under again, and we come up through here. So once you're started, it's all good. So we've created a nice cross. This time we're going to go across the second one. Okay, so we go cross, nice and tight. It comes up through the middle. Can we see that? Sorry, I don't know if I'm doing a very good job of showing. So you come up, and then you're going to make another cross on the second log. Okay, and we go under, and then cross again. So we squeeze the rope down, and as you're doing this, you should start to find that everything is tightening up. Now I'm going to go a bit faster, so I'm going to go across, and then once we're done, put it tight, and then under, and then we come up on log number 4, and we go cross, under, so that we're still actually doing what's called a figure of 8 knot here. Okay, and then we're under, and then we're across. Right, so I'm just going to speed up until we get to the end of this one. And cross again. Now actually, I have not given you guys enough rope, because really we should go back and forwards a few times if you're doing a proper lashing. But once you're done, you should end up with a nice cross pattern going across. Now if you pulled it tight as well, you'll notice now that this raft is fairly steady. It's even just with the one end done. Okay, now under normal circumstances you'd have a lot more string, and I'm sorry that I haven't given you enough string there. From there we will just tie it off using a clove hitch for now. So I'm actually going to use the one that you do around the piece of wood on the end, and I can show you more of that on the night. But that's the start. I'm just going to pause again and do the other end, and we'll see the end result. Okay, cool. So we're nearly there on this other side. Sorry to skip to the end, but obviously this second side is a little bit more tricky, because you do actually have to sort of feed it through each one. So I've left the last two to do together. So from behind, I'm having to poke the string just up through the middle of the raft to get my first cross. So there's my first cross, and then I'm going round, back under, and then here's the second cross, and then I'm feeding it back through the planks on the raft. Okay, so once it goes through, oops, put it tight, and then we go under, cross, feed back up through, cross, and then we tie off with a clove hitch at the end. So you should, once it's all done, I mean, I've not been pulling that tight, but that's a nice sturdy raft. And then if this was a bigger raft, you'd put your rucksacks on the end, you'd all sit in the middle, start paddling, and then probably capsize. But yes, with these rafts, what we'll do, we'll give you a little task at the end. We may go and float them in the river, and we'll see if you can time each other and see whose is the fastest down one of the Stapleton rivers. All right, cool. So that's how you make a mini raft. We'll obviously do this live on the night as well. But if you want to have a practice at this, it will give you, so you can come across any hurdles beforehand. And perhaps, unlike me, you might have enough string. So the ultimate goal is to have 3 loops on each side going this way when you're doing the lateral lashing. And then when you're coming back and doing these crosses, which are called, what do I call them again? It's frapping. When you do the frapping at the end to neaten it up and pull it all together, you should have at least 2, ideally 3 of these to tighten it all up and make it really, really, really tight knot. Okay, good. Well, we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday and having a crack at this together. Take care for now. See you then.